There have certainly been enough questions and conversations about the Minnesota Timberwolves, and we haven't even gotten to the season. So, will Jimmy Butler in fact be moved? We know the Cat is here long term, but who else will be with him? We'll try, and I say try, to answer all those questions and get you ready for all the talent on the floor. The Minnesota Timberwolves team preview starts right now. We welcome you inside our studios here in Atlanta. It is your team preview for the upcoming season for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Good to have you. Next 30 minutes, we'll give you 10 points, take you A to Z across the board, getting you ready for the season, getting some help. Stern, Smitty, and Booze with you. And boy, do we have enough to talk about. Maybe it should be like a 3-hour show because we have to start, Smitty, and probably end with Jimmy Butler and this scenario. I want to start by asking you this. Where we are now, how much do you put on Jimmy Butler personally? How much do you put on just the situation maybe not being the right one?
Well, first of all, it's terrible timing for both sides. And when you have a late trade request, Booz, when we're close to training camp, I think one on the organization, if Booz has called me from the Minnesota Timberwolves, I'm going to let him offer. I'm not going to offer my best because I know right now he's desperate to try to move Jimmy Butler. It's all out there. Then I think also for Jimmy, as players, we understand you saying you want to go to this place, you want to go to that place, but sometimes it's hard. It makes it even harder. And I just think from an organization standpoint, guys, you got to trust each other. You figure you're going into training camp, and now that is all broken up. This is where the veterans on this team, Booze, got to get this team and rally around. Hey, we're not starting the season with Jimmy Butler and probably won't have him throughout the entire season.
You know, Jimmy Butler was brought there because he was Tibbs's guy. He was going to be the extension of Tibbs. But was that maybe what caused part of the problem, not actually help? Because maybe he was on one side and the players' Booze ended up on another.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly why Jimmy wanted to get out of there. It still hasn't come to light yet, but clearly, I mean, Jimmy's a Tibbs guy. You know, he worked his butt off in Chicago. He's playing behind Luol Deng, who was an all-star, Rip Hamilton, who was the champion and an all-star, Derrick Rose, who was a former MVP. So he was playing behind some guys to learn from. And then Jimmy worked his butt off and became a star. So they bring him to Minnesota with all that young talent, and Jimmy was supposed to be the guy to lead them to the future. Whatever happened, he wants to get out of there. Hopefully it happens soon because it becomes kind of a distraction for the players. You know, we've all been there where some guys don't want to be there. They want to get traded, and you're kind of waiting, and you're waiting. And we saw this also happen in San Antonio a little bit with Kawhi. So hopefully they're able to put it to rest in the next day or two, and they can figure out where they're going from here. But to Smitty's point, Taj Gibson, Tibbs bringing in Luol Deng, those veteran guys can help this young group stay focused.
Yeah, here's the problem, and Smitty referenced it, no leverage.
Yes.
Because they know not only you want to deal him, but you want to deal him as soon as possible. And the problem is, Smitty, how do you not look at what they gave up to get Jimmy Butler?
Right.
When you look at Dunn, Levine, and Lauri Markkanen, there's no way, right? You're going to get close to that.
No, not at all. And I'm with Booze. We don't know what happened. And obviously it happened, what I would say, within the last 60 days. Because to me, looking on the outside in, he's playing for a coach that he knows and really got blossomed his game. He has Taj. He has Derrick Rose. You have Luol Deng. You have the Bulls. And then you have those two cornerstone and young guys and Cat and also Wiggins. And then also Teague is a very solid point guard. To me, they had the making of a team that was going forward. Whatever happened in the last 60 days for Jimmy Butler to want to get out of there, it's unfortunate for both sides.
Yeah, it's a good point that you make because we'll get to that at point number 2, and that is playoffs, right? I mean, that was a big season. That's the saddest part, Booze, is to come off getting there. So you're sitting there and in that room, you want to feel all this positive energy. You talk about the distraction. What helps, I think, is the contract for Karl Anthony Towns, who I don't think, not coincidentally, within 24, 48 hours gets locked up long term.
Right, and good and well-deserving. He's a great young talent, got double-double machine. Is going to have to carry that team into the postseason, especially without Jimmy. There's going to be a lot of pressure on Cat to do it, especially in the postseason. Like Smitty said, that team was built for the playoffs. Looked like they were going to be on the rise. Locking up Cat right there was a huge decision for the organization to keep them in place. And also for him, he's filling in some big footsteps to play in. You know, Kevin Garnett being there and what he was able to have, the success that he had in Minnesota. Karl Anthony Towns is that same kind where he can have that kind of success, but he has to do it in the postseason.
Smitty, I remember doing a lot of games at night with you last year on Game Time, and he'd have 7 shots, 5 shots, no shots in the fourth quarter. I don't want to tie the two together, but if Jimmy Butler were to move, does that maybe actually help Karl Anthony Towns become the man where he can take on that, forget just leadership, but that ownership of being the guy in the big spot?
Well, responsibility, and obviously it'll be more for him. And I think we understand that he's a very talented kid offensively, but I think now the next to check off for him is leadership. And this team, the Timberwolves, it's about defense, and I think that's where Jimmy helped those guys, and obviously being able to relay that message that Tibbs wanted. Now, Anthony Towns has to fill that role. He's going to get some help from Taj and Derrick Rose, but it comes down, Boo said it best, when you get this type of money, you get this type of spotlight, it's the playoffs right now. Him and Wiggins and his entire team, they're going to have to do it in the playoffs. But first, can they make it to the playoffs in the Western Conference, which is going to be a tough task.
You know, we know Jimmy Butler looks like he'll move, and you hate going back to that, but you talk about leadership, Booze. How do you kind of pick up the pieces from that? How much of the onus goes on now those other players, those other Tibbs guys, to make sure everybody kind of stays in line after that trade is made?
Yeah, well, most of it. You know, this is the moment where we find out, will Andrew Wiggins turn into that star that we all hope him to be, because there's going to be a lot of pressure on him as well. He got a big bag a couple summers ago, so he's got to make that adjustment and make that growth step as well. But you also have a Derrick Rose, who was an MVP, who was the star in Chicago Bulls, who has that experience that can also talk to an Andrew Wiggins, that can talk to a Karl Anthony Towns about that responsibility and what it takes to lead night in, night out, and be great on a consistent basis. So he's been there before, and he's also there now. You bring in the Luol Deng with the defensive responsibility to teach them about the defensive role, where to be at, to be in the right position. And you still got Taj Gibson, who is that quiet OG vet who calms everything down, who's there. So they have the right veteran guys in place to help those two young stars out.
You mentioned Wiggins. When you look at the numbers, last year obviously not a very good season for him on the scoring side. How much of that, Smitty, comes down to that he was kind of lowered in the power rankings, if you will, of where the ball was going to go when Jimmy Butler became the forefront guy in big spots?
Yeah, before Jimmy Butler, I mean, Wiggins handled the basketball a little bit more, and then obviously he'll get it, I think, a much more responsibility of handling, making plays, Booze. He was kind of more of a spot-up shooter, run the wing. For me, from Andrew Wiggins, offensively, I think he'll be fine. I want to see his imprint on the defensive end, because I think he has a chance to be one of those lock-up wings that can change games defensively and just with his energy. I think offensively, he's so young and he has so much talent, he's going to be fine. But can he make his mark on that defensive end, Booze? And that's the one area I would love to see. He can slide his feet. He's long. He's athletic. I think he can be a lockdown defender.
And people have questioned the motor and said not the athleticism, but is this a guy who really wants it, goes for it, and all of that? How important, I hate going back to the leadership again, but when you have those vets, I mean, how much of an onus as a young player for you, Booze, came on yourself making sure to charge that, and how much comes from maybe getting a little bit of a push from some of those vets in that room?
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I went to Utah and they teamed me up with Darren Williams and Andre Karolinko. Coach Sloan brought us all in the office and said, look, this is your team. You guys are all young, 21, 22-year-old kids. We're going to be as good as you guys take us. And so we pushed each other. You know, you challenge each other. And in that locker room in Minnesota, they're going to have to push each other. Karl Anthony Towns is going to have to take the responsibility of getting on to Andrew Wiggins and being like, come on, man, I need you. You know, you've had moments like that before when you play, where the best motivation is when it comes from your teammate. Yeah, you know, you hear your coach, you're going to hear Tibbs bark at you from time to time, but sometimes that sound goes kind of dull. When your teammate pushes you, that's when you really elevate your game.
Booze, you talk about Tibbs barking. You played for him. That was the first year for Karl Anthony Towns and Wiggins. You know, talk about the adjustment for the second year. They should be used to it. It won't be such a shock for those guys. Because Tibbs is a guy that we can hear on the sideline. Tell me how Anthony Wiggins and now Karl Anthony Towns in their second year.
Yeah, it's a tough adjustment. Anytime you go from a coach that was somewhat successful to a Tibbs who comes in with a great record coming out of Chicago, coached a lot of great stars in Chicago. He's coming in, he's taking over the franchise. The first year is going to be, you know, bumps and bruises. You're going to have some nights where you're like, man, this guy don't like me, but he's challenging you. The second year, you've been through it already. You're more calm. You got one more year in the NBA under your belt. You got the bag to secure, so you can sleep a little better at night knowing you got all that bread coming in. So now it's your chance to see what your legacy is going to be. How great can you guys be? How far can you take this team? And again, for me, depending on what they get back for Jimmy, if they end up moving Jimmy, what they get back from will also help to see what kind of team they're going to have. But once they get to the postseason, if they get there, how far can you take them?
All right, you talk about the Bulls and you talk about Booze and Tibbs. Well, when we come back, we'll look at the depth chart. Some old familiar friends and faces. No Thorne here, because this Rose still has enough talent to make an impact. We'll get into that on the other side. More team preview coming.
team preview. Next on NBA TV.
It's over! It's over! For the first time since 2004, the Timberwolves are headed to the NBA playoffs!
We welcome you to the NBA playoffs. It's the number 8 seed in the West, the Minnesota Timberwolves, facing number 1, Houston Rockets.
The Timberwolves have struggled mightily against the Rockets.
The horn will sound here at the Toyota Center in Houston, and the Wolves season has come to an end.
And so it was a learning experience for the young Timberwolves, or the Timber Bulls, if you will, because there are many of Tibbs' old friends, and yours, Booze, as we look at the depth chart. And how good was it for you to see not only Derek play, but when he got there to really show, hey, look, he could still go, especially offensively?
Oh, D Rose looked great. You know, he came back, he was healthy, he got a good mindset, played terrific, gave him a huge lift off that bench last year, and very impressive.
You know, when you look at these young players, they got a good young group. How much do you see the veterans playing? Because we saw the situation, I go back to Chris Dunn with his year with Tibbs, where he didn't play, and then he gets over to Chicago and we start to see him grow. Are we going to see these young kids get some minutes?
You know, if Jimmy was there, I would say probably no. That's just kind of Tibbs playing rookies. But I think without Jimmy Butler, you look at that two-guard spot. I mean, yes, Derrick Rose, we got a chance to see him and T play a lot together, but I think you're going to have somebody with some size, whether it's Bates Diop or you use Josh Okogie. One of those guys is going to have to be in the rotation, I think, to help out a Jeff Teague, to help out a Andrew Wiggins, and also Karl Anthony Towns. And they need some guys that can stretch the floor and knock down some shots. Jimmy could do that as well.
You know, Teague is like one of these, and you mentioned it before, he's like a forgotten guy.
Yep.
Whether when he played here in Atlanta, everywhere he goes, his numbers are always just under kind of where you look at an all-star point guard, and maybe doesn't get enough credit for all the things he does well.
No, he's an unsung hero. Very good young player, shoot the three, does a good job running the team, doesn't make too many mistakes, a good pick-and-roll player, very solid, knocks his free throws down. He is kind of the forgotten man, but he's a very good player.
Smitty, when you look at this team, it's hard to look at the depth chart because we know Jimmy Butler is there.
Right.
He may not be there. So without making everyone sad, but still needs to be asked, if it was as it's shown on the screen, how good could this team be?
You saying with or without Jimmy?
With if
Jimmy.
It was with. When you look at this the way it is here, how good could this team be?
You look at that team, they got a chance to be an 8 seed. Obviously, you ran into the Rockets, but then you add some younger guys and Bates Diop and obviously Josh Okogie, but then they get another year under Tibbs. You bring in another Tibbs guy and Luol Deng. I think this team had a chance, and obviously in the West it's hard, to maybe be the 7th seed. And that's not no disrespect to them going up 1 seed because of the West with LeBron James they hadn't, because he'll be a playoff team with the Lakers. And then now you're building with some young guys. I thought they had a good chance and a good future.
Yeah, between the Lakers and Denver, who just missed out, and the bottom of the West going to be difficult to get spots. Go from the bottom to the top of the board, where there is certainly some loyalty now with this team, and that is Karl Anthony Towns. And I know you guys want to talk about, we always talk about it's positionless basketball, but where do we see him? What's attached to Karl Anthony Towns?
Well, I
4
think
or
for
5?
me, and that's the reason why I want to ask Booze, because obviously Booze has played that 4 or 5, and you look the way we're playing now in the league, Booze, and you take a Karl Anthony Towns, and guys are playing next to him, he'll probably be starting Taj Gibson.
Right.
What's best for him offensively, Booze? Do you play him at the elbow?
Right.
Do you play him on the block? Do you throw him back to basket? Do you want him facing up, or you want him more pick and roll?
Yeah, the great thing about Cat is he's very versatile. You know, he can go inside and outside. He's shown to be able to hit the three a little bit in a pick and pop situation. But for me personally, if I'm Tibbs, I want him to occupy this post.
Okay.
I want to go a little bit old school.
Take me through it. Do you want him just back and post it up?
Yeah, just turn 5 like they used to do with Shaq, like they used to do with the White when he was in Orlando.
Okay.
Just catch the ball and operate in here. Just go to work. Do your moves, do your up and unders, do your fallaways. And if they do bring help, you got plenty of playmakers around. You got Derrick Rose who can penetrate. Jeff Teague can hit the 3. You got Tolliver come off the bench for Taj Gibson, hit a 3. You got Andrew Wiggins doing whatever he wants to do. So you got guys you can throw the ball to, but make them defend you one-on-one down here. And then you can always play positionless basketball, do the pick and pop for the 3, go to the elbow, isolate, face up. But I want him to dominate down here like they used to be when you and me played.
Well, when you look at it, Bulls, is he a guy that, you know, he doesn't have the girth and the strength of you? Do you want him just posting up a turn 5? Or do you want him on the move catching?
Yeah, both. I want him like pin down screens. Like, remember the play used to run for KG?
Okay.
Where they would do like a cross screen right here, KG would rip down into the post, catch the ball, and be on the move. He could face up, he could shoot the jumper, he can catch it out here, face up and jab a little bit. Cat has that same similar style where he can face up and move a little bit, get a big guy off the dribble, and his size and his touch, he can back him down a little bit, get to right here, and do a nice soft baby hook shot too. So you want to put him in positions to be successful. Just like we talked about over on the table, we want him to get 15, 20 shots a game. And obviously, if Jimmy's not there, that's going to go up. But if he is there, you can still get him a nice 15 touches around the paint.
Hey, no, Booz, they run so much high pick and roll right now. And I just want to ask you, because I'm old school, what is wrong with having, a Jeff Teague and Karl Anthony Towns running a side pick and roll?
Oh, it's beautiful.
I know everybody wants the spacing, but wouldn't you think you're having a Karl Anthony Towns kind of similar to you that can shoot it and post up? Don't feel good, now you can backing down. Versus, I think right here, everybody's popping to this three-point line, and he has to shoot a three. Or the dive in a row is so hard sometimes because of the spacing, and they don't have great three-point shooter. You think it should be more side pick and roll or high pick and roll?
I agree with you. That's why I think Karl Anthony Towns has to be a throwback guy in today's game. I think you put him on the box, you put him in a side pick and roll, just like you said. You let him isolate in these three areas. You got the elbow, the block, and this area right here. Let him operate, pick and roll, catch and go. You can dribble handoff, you can get him on the move. You can because he's also 7 feet, so his size is a great advantage on most teams. So for him, you want to put him in positions to be successful.
A lot of things have changed. You know what hasn't? Have off-season, will travel. A lot of the players did that. If you don't believe me, social media showed us a lot of that during the course of the off-season. For example, D Rose abroad. He'll be back in the Twin Cities trying to get Minnesota some W's. We'll look at some social moments. The starters will weigh in when we come back. Over the offseason, how about the Cat Karl Anthony Towns working it with his feet? He used some hands too at Atletico Madrid, getting ready for the season. But will he be and should he be the #1 option, even with Jimmy Butler on the floor? The starters break it down.
Trey Kirby and Tass Mellis of the starters here with you for the next point on the Minnesota Timberwolves. True or false, Trey? The Wolves are better off with Karl Anthony Towns as their #1 option.
I think it's true, but you kind of have to take a long view of the team for that to be the case.
Sure.
Last season, Jimmy Butler, clearly the #1 option, and I would say their best player. Made a huge improvement to the team, but if you're going to move forward and if you're going to actually challenge for championships, I think it's going to be with Karl Towns as the #1 option for the Timberwolves. The guy is a centerpiece offensive player. He can score from anywhere on the court. You can definitely build an entire offense around him. And I'm also excited to see a chip on the shoulder season from Karl Towns. We've seen him respond to criticism before. He would get slammed for his defense, then come out and play really hard on the defensive end for a couple of games, and then maybe the same sort of thing would happen. He would respond again. He's been called out basically all summer in the media via Jimmy Butler and just via other media, So I think we're going to see him come out and be super fired up to prove, yeah, I'm a #1 guy. I got paid like a #1 guy, and I want to show that this is my team. I'm taking it over. I am a big-time Karl Anthony Towns fan, and I'm hoping that a chip on the shoulder season is exactly what he needs.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think every single GM would give him this max contract 100 times out of 100 times.
For sure.
At the same time, he hasn't led this team into the postseason, without Jimmy Butler. He hasn't been able to be a #1 guy. But you look at his numbers, out of this world at 21 and 12 plus a 3.5, with Jimmy Butler beside him. So what can he do as #1 option? Probably even better than that, I assume. And, I think the expectations were just extremely high for him coming out of 1 year of Kentucky. The Tim Duncan comparisons were a little rough. And maybe he can be Tim Duncan now that he's had, like Tim Duncan had 4 years at Wake Forest. He's had 1 year in college, now 3 years in the NBA, and maybe he can grow up a little bit. I'm just doing math. He's Tim Duncan because of math. But I do think long view, he's got to be the #1 guy on this team, and maybe he understands the defensive end a little bit better like Tim Duncan did at some point, in this next year or two.
Yeah, 21 points last year on just 14 shot attempts. I don't think it would be out of the realm of possibility that he gets back to the 25-point-per-game mark pretty easily.
And he shot over 40% from three. Ridiculous.
Unbelievable.
All right, that is it for us. More on the Timberwolves coming up. And if you want more of the starters, check us out weeknights here on NBA TV throughout the season.
All right, gentlemen, great stuff there and an intriguing question. So I'll throw it to you guys. Smitty, true or false, the Cat needs to be the number one option?
Well, I would say somewhat true. And the reason why is with Jimmy Butler, I don't get into this number one option. He has to be that guy. If Booz is my number one option, that doesn't mean he has to be the number one scorer because they could be doubling him. I think number one option is your main objective is to draw double teams and make plays for others and get yours. So can he be? Should he be? Yes. But I don't think you don't have to be when you have other guys on your team.
Yeah, I think it's true as well. And to Smitty's point, I think at the end of the day, Karl-Anthony Towns is going to have to play big minutes, score the ball, create double teams, make the right play, whoever the pass is, whoever the cut is. But at the same time, even though he's going to be averaging 20-plus and 10-plus rebounds, those other guys are going to have to step up in a major way for them to have success, especially without Jimmy.
And take more shots.
Yeah.
Those numbers that they were breaking down, take some more shots. We'll take a shot at predicting in our crystal ball because it'll really matter. What's going to happen this season? More or less, and we'll do it with that face when we come back. Recent history for the T-Wolves. Well, last season, a good one, clearly. First time in the postseason since going back to the 03-04 campaign. Numbers under Tibbs, not where they'd like to see him. Who plays for Tibbs this year? Not exactly an answer we can give you. So why not predict the unpredictable then? And give you at our game more or less how we see the T-Wolves this season. Smitty, the total I'm giving you is 40.5 wins.
I'm going, as of presently right now, I'm going under for sure because I look at it right now, the Lakers have gotten much better. I think Denver is better. And all the teams have gotten better. Without Jimmy Butler as of today, whether he's there or not, I'm saying under 40.5.
Booze?
If they don't have Jimmy, I'm going under. If they have Jimmy, I'm going over. So we'll see what happens.
Well, this doesn't make it any
Sorry, guys.
We'd have like two different shows and two more or less. If they have Jimmy Butler, true or false, they're a playoff team?
I would go true. Will they make it? It's the West. It's the West.
If they keep Jimmy, they're a playoff team.
Yeah, I think so. If Jimmy's there, you know, he's in a contract year, he's going to be motivated, the rest of that talent, they make it.
Hasn't been traded yet. Do you think there's any chance?
I think he's
gone.
He's
gone.
I think he's gone. I just don't know
Regardless.
when, but I think he's gone.
Regardless.
I think he's traded this season, too.
You would hope if you're sitting there, you're the T-Wolves, he'd stay long enough till the deadline so
If
you
you're
get some
Tibbs,
value
you got to
for
try to
him,
talk
right?
him back into him. You get some Derrick Rose and Luol Deng and Taj to say, come on, just give us a shot.
You got to talk to ownership to then be able to talk.
Well, that's a little bit
you
different.
know.
That's a little bit different.
That's for another show. We'll predict what will happen there another time. Be interesting to see what happens with the T-Wolves. The Jimmy Butler situation continues. You think before the season he gets traded?
I will predict.
Go ahead, predict.
The owner will trade Jimmy Butler.
Well done. Well done.
You can keep up with the T-Wolves throughout the course of the season right here on NBA TV. For Booze and Smitty, I'm Stern. We'll see you next time from our studios in Atlanta.